I would want to say that for a long time, as you know, governments have really relied on donor assistance to finance their projects, but with the advent of the bond market, it's increasingly becoming another avenue for them to actually finance all the projects. As you know, a lot of countries, Kenya included, have visions for the economic blueprints for developing the countries. And again, a lot of expectation on the capital markets to really finance these blueprints, to finance the infrastructure, as well as really ensure that there's adequate savings so that the intermediation can be done. Given that, it is important, and that's why I believe we have been working very closely with the project to ensure that the bond market develops, because it is very key in terms of accessing long-term finance. What we have seen over the period has been that the countries that have developed to at least 10% GDP per annum have actually had savings at least exceeding 35 to 40% from the citizenry. So how do we ensure that we have enough products? A lot has been done from the government and fiscal policy side. As you know, the infrastructure bond that was launched from 2009 actually had great incentives. And since then, a lot of infrastructure bonds have been issued. I mean, not a lot, but at least we've had quite a substantive amount that has also brought in investors and issuers into the bond space, and that is very good for our country. Of course, one of the challenges that our economy faces has been the infrastructure development. I'd want to say that this is critical, especially the fact that now we are actually moving to the East African Common Market Protocol. It is critical for us to also ensure we have adequate infrastructure to facilitate the trade that will be going on within the 5 countries. And when we look at the financing of that, obviously the bond market will play a key role in mobilizing the required resources. When we look at the Kenyan market, as you know, our bond market has really been developed. A lot of that is really 90% of the bond market comprises government securities. A lot of growth, obviously, a lot of development in that space. We have a 30-year bond currently, and that's really very good. And recently we also had a diaspora bond. I think you've also seen a lot of initiatives within Africa to try and tap into the diaspora so that we ensure that the diaspora are also able to contribute towards the development of our various countries. What I would want to say that these initiatives have contributed to a bond turnover increase. When we look at the year 2009, the bond turnover as a ratio of GDP was 5% at the end of 2009. And at the end of 2010, this increased to about 17%, making Kenya the second highest bond market in Africa in terms of turnover as a percentage of GDP. So those were very impressive numbers for the year 2010 for us. I'd want to say that, yes, we've had a lot of gains, but obviously, we've also seen that there's a lot of scope, and based on that, we did actually convene a bond steering committee, again through the support of the SMID. That is actually chaired by the Capital Markets Authority. I do chair it. And it comprises the private sector players. It also comprises our market intermediaries. We also have the Central Bank of Kenya and the Ministry of Finance Debt Management Department to actually work with us. And of course, the SMID team is there as observers. We've also had the support, again, to have Mr. Joachim Lang actually work as a consultant in just trying to drive some of the reforms there. So I'd wish to say that we are really grateful for that support, and the objective is to obviously ensure that the bond reforms are ongoing, and also because of that, we were in a position to advise the government. And as at this year's budget reading, during the finance bill, the government has adopted amendments to facilitate over-the-counter trading of bonds. And I think, again, this should not be a cause of worry, because what we are looking at is really ensuring that there's also post-trade transparency, which is very key, so that, again, we're not having a lot of opaque transactions. What I'd also wish to say is that I know my colleagues are here from the East African markets. I think I've seen the Uganda CME, as well as Dar es Salaam Stock Exchange. And I believe the Tanzanian regulator is also represented. We are working very well together to just try and deal with the issue of regional integration, and really on matters especially to do with trading and settlement, which will be very key even for bond transactions. And we recently, actually, at the East African Security Regulators Authority, approved a regional bond guidelines to facilitate the regional bond issuances by issuers within the East African space. So we believe that all these initiatives will be very key. We are in the process of having those gazetted, at least from the Kenyan side, as well as the other 4 countries, at least the 3 countries that we have. So we expect, and we've recently seen, I believe Mrs. Vivian Apopo is here, but I believe we've seen her announcement that she will soon be, the EADB will soon be having a regional bond, so we look forward to supporting that bond transaction. Other initiatives which we would be seeking to support, from October the 19th, we did start serious engagement with the Islamic community in Kenya, and some of that engagement has actually led to them actually making proposals for us to have a sukuk component, especially by the government, if that could be possible in some of the issuances that they're having. So we are working with them, with the key stakeholders in the Islamic community, to see how this could be facilitated as well. I commend again the government. As you know, recently the public-private partnership legal framework was also enacted, and it is in operation. And our role is also very key. We have been in discussions with the Public-Private Partnership Secretariat, which is really under the Ministry of Finance, to see how we could work together, because obviously it's still at the beginning stage, but we expect that some of those private sector players will be coming in to issue PPPs. We'll also need financing through the bonds. And this is obviously very good news, and we will be working well together, and we'll also seek your support as stakeholders. Finally, the development of the African bond market depends on the cooperation of stakeholders, including potential issuers and investors. We must bear in mind that it will be important that we sustain the investor confidence, given all the matters that have been going on globally. A lot of changes, change management is very key, so that we could also ensure that even we don't lose sight of the long-term vision and the long-term strategies of really developing our market. I believe this conference will today and tomorrow provide an important opportunity to create awareness amongst us policymakers, as well as key representatives of the private sector, as well as even our own intermediaries and other stakeholders. I therefore look forward to the deliberations and outcomes of the conference, which I believe will provide views on the African bond market reform agenda and how this can be moved forward.